morning to you, sport fans. Welcome to today's edition of the program Talk Sport right here, Nigeria's capital city, Abuja. This is Global TV, and the much talk about youth games is up, talking about the 7th edition of the national sport event that brings up the best. On today's edition of the program, we'll be telling you the development of soft and baseball. We will take you to the United States of America. We'll take you to Uganda, and we'll spend much time in South Africa. These are countries that have done tremendously in the development of soft and baseball. And with me here in the studio is one man who has seen it all as a player and today scouting for the young ones, giving them the opportunity to showcase their talent in baseball. Only on Global TV you get this. Let's take a break. When we come, we'll meet our guests and we'll be taking you straight to Asaba, beautifully set for the Nigerian youths. Global TV is the station, and I am Clinton Agbo, welcoming you to today's edition of the program. Let's take a break. When we come back, our guest is already seated with us here in the studio. Glad to know that you are tuned to the program Talk Sport right here in Nigeria's capital city, Abuja. This is Talk Sport on Global TV. The stage is set for the much talked about the 7th edition of the National Youth Games in Asaba, the Delta State capital, where the best of sporting activities will be going on for the next 10 days, and it will end on the 30th of this month. And the celebration will be on the Nigerians' Independence Day, talking about 1st October. But before we go to Asaba, where we'll be hosting about 6,000 fans, talking about the athletes who are the future champions. With me here in the studio is Armstrong Oguche, one man that has seen it all as far as sport is concerned, a one-time international and a national player for his beloved father's country, Nigeria. Today, he's giving a helping hand for the young ones. Armstrong, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, let's go straight. The National Sport Festival kicks off today in Asaba. And of course, the Honorable Minister of Sport will be representing our dear sport-loving president. Let's look at the essence of the National Sport Festival, the Youth Games.
Well, thank you once again for having me on Talk Sport. The Youth Game is a welcome development for the budding youngsters, sports youngsters in Nigeria as a whole. You know that every country in the world have a program, an Olympic program that rolled out every 4 years. I believe that the Youth Games, the philosophy behind the Youth Games is to catch them young, is to first and foremost identify these young athletes, groom them within the time that I believe Nigeria has, and also expose them in international competition. So the National Youth Games is a welcome development, and for me it's actually a celebration here because for the first time baseball and softball is accepted officially into the National Youth Games and recognized. So for me it's a fiesta to celebrate, if you don't mind.
A fiesta to celebrate if you don't mind, but I tell you that the 7th edition of the National Sport Festival kicks off today in Asaba, the Delta State capital. The game is the brainchild of Goodluck Jonathan administration. It is a multi-sporting event organized by the federal government of Nigeria through the National Sport. It's going to bring together a total of 36 states, including our dear beloved Federal Capital Territory. Team FCT has been camping at the old parade ground, and they are heading to Asaba where they will compete effectively to come home with medals. The Federal Capital Territory will participate in a total of 12 sporting events, as made known by the Director of Sport in the FCT, Mr. Lucas. He told TalkSport that Team FCT will do everything possible to ensure that they come home with medals that will be celebrated. Team FCT has done tremendously well in all participation at the national sporting event. Their best result was when Abuja hosted the national festival in which they finished 7th. Team FCT has always been topping the states, the 19 states in the northern part of the country, and they are set for another great moment. Armstrong, let's look at you have a responsibility of taking these kids from the grass, giving them an opportunity which will enhance their skills and perhaps fly the Nigerian flag, the green, white, green. Let's look at the development of base and softball. First of all, our audience will need to know the difference between soft and base. Armstrong, why do you call it soft and base where there's no hard?
Okay. Well, not necessarily because the ball is soft or hard. The dimension of the balls actually comes to bear when you try to describe the two sports. Now, they are two twin sports. Baseball is an American pastime, a Japanese pastime, if you don't mind. It has come to gain grounds around the world, and particularly in Africa. And Nigeria has been, plying, its trade in the sport as well. We have been second place only to South Africa for the better part of about 20 or 30 years now, 3 decades to be precise. And during that time, I had participated as well and played and represented the Nigerian national baseball team. Now, baseball is usually more played by men or boys, while softball is enrolls more girls or ladies, as it were. However, there are other versions of the sport. Girls also play baseball, and boys or men also play softball. If I go into that detail now, we may take all the time, but the difference is the softball is in dimension, is a lot bigger than the baseball. The baseball is much smaller, in size but of course the rules and almost everything about the sport is the same.
The commencement of the 6th National Sport Festival, that was then, but today we are talking about the 7th National Sport Festival. And one state has been making all talking about winning the medals. The commencement of the 7th National Youth Games, Team Delta says their intention is to intensify preparation ahead of the event to be held at the Stephen Keshi International Stadium, Asaba. The athletes have been in camp and going through rigorous training by their coaches, and the 6-time champions of the National Youth Games look to maintain and dominance in the entire process. Talking about the state that is hosting, they have won the past 6 edition, and this time around they are hosting the game in their own backyard. Coach, will Delta still dominate the games? Today they are playing in their own home.
Delta, I must say, is a very sporting state. I don't know of any other state in the country that has supported youth sports like Delta. I'm aware that in the last decade, I would say, every major baseball, softball tournament or championship has been won by the Delta State team. That tells you that the state has really invested in either sports infrastructure, in their sports program. And I do believe that once again they will show their prowess in these particular games, not just in baseball and softball. Delta has been doing very well in athletics and in other field sports. I have no doubt that Delta will still put up a good fight and a good show, more so that they are the host of these games. I want to believe that with sports require investment, and not just government getting involved, but also corporate bodies getting involved. But what I know about Delta is they've taken issues of sports development very seriously. When you compare to other states in the federation, I think Delta has really put their their treasure where their heart is, and they've been reaping quite a lot from that. In baseball, for instance, they've got a couple of players now who are abroad and maybe doing well, not as well as would expect, but at least they are better than any other state so far.
Team Delta have won every edition of the National Youth Games since inception in 2013 and are favorites to win the age-long championship. We'll be taking you straight to South Africa, where Chris will be giving us development of base and softball in South Africa. And from there, we'll take you to Uganda and the United States of America. We are flying on the Talk Sport right here on Global TV. Let's take a break. When we come back, our guest will be joining us live from South Africa. Chris will be the man on duty.
Please.
Glad to have you back on the program this beautiful day right here in Nigeria's capital city. Let's tell you that Sani, of course, is on the list. Talking about the baseball, the coaches should be on his way because Team FCT will also be participating in the baseball. But all is set for the 7th edition, the commencement of the youth games in Asaba, and Team FCT will also be participating. Let me come back here with one man who has the responsibility of ensuring that the athletes are in good shape to make his list. Coach Armstrong, what exactly are you looking at from these young ones?
Thank you. For me, these games present an opportunity to identify young talents and also subsequently plan or work out a program through the Nigerian Baseball and Softball Association to groom and then expose them early in the year. In May, June this year, Hokaka SoftBank Professional Baseball Club was here from Japan, and I worked very closely with them alongside the Nigerian Baseball and Softball Association. The purpose why they came was to scout about 15 players, sponsor them and give them scholarship to study in Japan and also to enter into the professional baseball program. But unfortunately, no player was scouted or selected. And so since that time, we have been hoping that there will be an opportunity to see our young baseball and softball players play. And these particular games present an opportunity to identify such young talents. And that's what I'm going to be doing in the games in Delta State the whole week. And I hope that we will support those beautiful talents and see if they can make the cut in professional baseball in the nearest future.
Do we expect to see Nigeria fully active in the international scene when it comes to base and softball?
Yes, we currently do have a crop of players around the world, even though they have not been able to have their big break into the major league, not even in the minor league currently. But we have other African countries like Uganda and South Africa who've got a couple of players. Even Ghana, our neighbor here, has a couple of players in the Japanese minor league. I think the reason why, and imagine that these countries are now making headway. We were only second to South Africa over the last 3 decades. But since then, the association have been doing the most that they can in terms of development program, and they are development driven. But you see, with involvement of government here and there, and sponsorship, we could do better. These countries that I mentioned have really gotten where they are today because they've got better sponsors. The corporate atmosphere in those countries are being able to assist. But you know, there are some countries in Africa where soccer is the main, you know, sport. As you know, all funds go into some of those major sports. I love soccer as well. I'm a soccer enthusiast, you know, and like any African, basically. But we need to diversify because there are other young people who are interested in other sports, and there are a lot of opportunities. So I believe that Nigeria, giving just a little push, will be able to stamp its presence in global or international baseball, softball scene.
While we wait for the corporate body to identify, Global TV is standing strong behind the development of sports in the country. Talking about the cutting-edge sports scholar athletes program, originated from faraway South Africa and is now a prime for introduction in Nigeria. And of course, I'm talking about the pilot program. In the studio here with me is one man all the way from South Africa, Armstrong, with the responsibility of catching them young and giving them. Armstrong, let's look at the event in terms of development, but it looks like we have Chris already standing by. Hello, Chris. Good morning. Of course, glad to let you know that we are still on the program talking about the ongoing National Sports Youth Games. Is the 7th edition and will be officially declared open today. The athletes will spend a total of 10 days in Asaba. Before Armstrong will join them, he's here with us in the studio. We are looking at Armstrong. These players, do we have the facilities on ground that you will transfer them from where they are now to the next stage, which you have the responsibility of preparing them for global use? Do we have such facilities in the country, or are you taking them out?
Well, the plan, May, June this year, early this year, was for the professional club to actually fly them to Japan. However, during that scouting program, no player was spotted at the time because they wanted 15-year-olds and under. But for now, we've got state chapter baseball and softball associations that are responsible for catering to the development of the twin love sports in their various regions. So whoever is spotted at this time, of course, will have engagements with their coaches, with their state chapter, and in liaison with the Nigeria Baseball and Softball Association and Hokuoka SoftBank Professional Baseball Club in Japan, will keep talking and monitor them for the next 2 years. And hopefully, by that time, their skill level would have been higher. The problem we had early this year was that the scout coaches who I worked with from Japan had lamented that our skill level was a little bit still too low for the level of competition in Japan. So we are going to work on that. We have very good technical coaches, and managers in Nigeria currently in most of our state chapters. So we are going to be working very close with them in the next 2 years to make sure that we at least elevate their skill level to a place where they are able to compete favorably with some of the very good talents that we have abroad, like Japan, for instance.
Armstrong, the growth of the game is of great importance. In one of your presentations, you did say the game is not as popular as the King's game, if I may say, talking about football. What is your team and your partners doing to make base and softball a household name in the Nigerian sporting industry?
Well, I am a part of the Nigeria Baseball and Softball Association, but besides that, I'm also part of an organization called Practice Proactive Scholar Athletes Program in South Africa. And our guest here, your guest, Chris, who is a director of the preschool scholar athlete program, practice proactive program in South Africa, is supposed to have joined us on air. We are looking at introducing practice proactive in Nigeria and probably use Abuja as a pilot program to introduce the program. It's a wonderful program where summer programs and games are planned throughout the year, where kids who are in school here can participate and affiliate with the program. And every holiday, we've got competitions in South Africa, maybe in Canada and in the US, and sometimes as well in Japan, where we can, we're planning to go to Japan, hopefully by next year, depending on the number of affiliations we will get here in Abuja, Nigeria. So it's going to be a pilot program, but this program is tailored to help and make sure that young athletes are exposed to high-level sports performance or competition at this level from an early age. Like we said the other day, that every country runs its national sports program or development program. It's what you call an Olympic cycle, and that runs every 4 years. So you have players or youngsters that are now